Time for the weather with Willard. One quick thing. Do you remember Landon?
Our man in Hollywood, Jim Brown, has an animated subject this morning. It sounds like something from Disney, but it isn't. Here's Jim.
Why have you come?
Please, forgive me for disturbing you, but my son's life is in great danger.
The Secret of NIMH is based on the best-selling children's classic, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of NIMH by Robert O'Brien. The story of a widowed mouse trying to find a new home for her family before the farmer's plow destroys the old one. But within that simple story, one-time Disney animators Don Bluth, Gary Goldman, and John Pomeroy have created a fast-paced, sometimes intense piece of classic animation. Bluth says it's the kind of animation Disney once did, but the trio departed the legendary Disney studio when they felt the old values had been set aside.
Some of the production values that you used to see were just not there. You know, they had knocked out contact shadows underneath the characters. They had stopped doing multiple passes through the camera, which gets you just this beautiful, magical look on the screen. To say nothing of the stories, which no longer had any bite in them. You know, they were very, very safe stories.
What are you talking about specifically? For example, what is in NIMH that you think is a throwback to the earlier Disney creations?
Well, there's several things that I could mention. First of all, I would say story is much different. With The Secret of NIMH, we're trying to tell a very definite story that has a little bit of bite in it. It does worry you. The story may scare you just a little bit. It may frighten quite a bit, you know, because it has scenes in it that that could scare children.
I've learned this much. Take what you can, when you can. Then you've learned nothing.
I think a film is a tremendous medium in which you can make a statement which will help the whole society, help the whole world. You know, because they do. They lift us up if they inspire. They fill us with hope. And they're like a leavening in the overall society. And we don't need pictures, movies that you go to that pull you down and that make you feel bad and that make you feel pessimistic and full of doom about the human race. I think you need pictures that make you feel hopeful.
Oh, I see. You have a girl.
Well, not really. I mean, I haven't found Miss Right yet. But when I do, the whole world will hear us singing.
Contrary to all the publicity put out on animation, it really is not that hard to draw every frame of the film. What's hard is if you draw one frame and then talk for 2 hours, and then draw a frame and talk for 2 more hours. Then it's expensive. But it's a medium, animation I'm talking about, is a medium where I believe everyone's life is enriched. What I'm mostly concerned about is that it does not dissipate into Saturday morning animation, because I think that that's really not worthy of the art form.
There is a way. Go to the rats.
For today, Jim Brown, NBC News, Hollywood.
It's nice to see the preservation of that art form in a time when everything is moving towards computers and all kinds of new things on the screen. Is there an audience for that?
There is a definite audience for this kind of thing. In fact, some of the best work done in the world today is animation, but it does not play in most movie theaters. You have to go to film festivals to see a lot of the great animation that's being done in countries all over the world. Ralph Bakshi has been on this program a couple of times and has done what I think forward-moving animation. And I'm very glad to see this kind of film, because you can do things in animation you can never do.
He mentioned the difference between this kind of animation and the Saturday morning animation.
That's right.
Which is, of course, more simplistic.
That's right. It's just surfacey. There's nothing behind it. It's like me sketching a stick figure on a piece of paper compared to an artist who really draws.
And, of course, the Disney studios produced tremendous talent, which now goes on to do it on their own. The new chief of protocol at the State Department is
to what extent?
Oh, it goes way back, way back. I think I was 5 years old when I saw my first Disney movie, and it was Snow White. And I came home from the movie that very day, you know, and began to draw the pictures that I'd seen in the movie. And I haven't stopped drawing since. I loved them. It moved me. When I went back to see Bambi, the same thing happened all over again. You know, I was moved again, and I was home drawing the pictures again. But I think more than anything, what moved me about those pictures isn't just the look of it, it's the story. It's the thing that came across as real. Not phony at all. It was real, and it moved. And
we did, didn't we? We believed Snow White. We believed Bambi. Is that the key to making a good
Yes, I think it
feature?
is. Believability is the first thing of all. It's like Shakespeare said, that play is the thing. And a lot of times we as animators get very, very cute with our art, you know, and we begin to draw cute pictures and thinking everybody will be entertained by that. But the key to it is believability and sincerity. And if you can make someone think that that's not drawn, that it really is happening, well, they get involved with the story, and consequently they start feeling things.
You, in The Secret of NIMH, it's so rich and the detail, and we hear today, or I've heard, that you can't afford to do this anymore. We keep hearing,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
but you've done it. How have you done it?
Well, you know what, I assumed right from the beginning that the people that were telling me that were possibly spreading rumors, and it wasn't true. So we just set about to find out, well, is it true? Can it be done? And we knew, because we started experimenting around in my garage with equipment and everything, and we knew that some of those things were so easy to put on the screen. Why had we stopped doing them at the Disney studio? So we indeed started putting them in there, and we found out that the cost wasn't that prohibitive.
So you've been able to do what they no longer do at Disney, essentially? Is that right?
Yes, that's true. We've started to put contact shadows back underneath the characters and put little sparkles all over in the water and on the metallic images and on the little crystal images, and a thing we call many passes through the camera, which gives a very transparent look to the things that are on the screen. It creates the magic that you believe in.
Let's look at now, Mrs. Brisby, right, is a field mouse.
That's correct.
She has a son, Timmy, who is sick. Now they take Mr. Ages, right, down to the rat, the guards, the rats of the guards?
Well, what they do, Mrs. Brisby has been informed that there's a secret civilization of rats that live under the farm. And if she will go down underneath the ground, they can help her solve the problem of moving her family out of the field. When she goes down there, they meet the rats for the first time.
All right, and Justin is one of the guards, right?
He's the captain of the guards. Now, in this little clip that you're going to see, Justin is a guy who is a very romantic figure, an Earl Flynn, a dashing kind of a rat, because I mean, people are attracted to rats. And you'll see the relationship.
A dashing rat.
A dashing rat. You'll see Mrs. Brisby and her establish a little relationship.
It's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen.
Reveal thy name.
Justin, you featherhead. Get your hands off me.
Okay, just a joke. I didn't mean any harm. The meeting's already in progress.
What's this all about?
Who may I ask?
Oh, yes, she can be trusted. This is no stranger. My dear, may I present Justin, the captain of the guard. Justin, Mrs. Brisby.
The voices, John Carradine?
Yes, he's the great owl.
Right.
And Peter Strauss, of course, you heard as captain of the guard, Justin.
Right. Okay.
And then we have Dom DeLuise, who's playing the part of a very stallion-like klutzy crow.
A klutzy, stallion-like
Well, he thinks
crow.
he wants to find Miss Right, and he thinks he's very athletic and everything. He's feeling the call of the wild, but he's very, very clumsy.
Now, here is Dom DeLuise, and this was when they were actually recording the voices for the characters. Watch this, Dom DeLuise.
Now, if that had been an actual cat, I'd be sneezing my brains. I'd say I'm allergic. I like it better this way. Don't you want to hear allergic? I like it better your way. So, all right. Yeah, okay. Nah. If that had been an actual cat, I'd be sneezing my brains out. See, I'm allergic to cat. If I had actually been near a cat, I'd be sneezing my brains out. See, I'm allergic to cat. I'm allergic to
Of course.
Oh! Don Bluth, thank you.
It's my pleasure.
The Secret of NIMH, and opening when?
It's opening, I think, probably the latter part of this month in New York, but across the country it starts July the 2nd.
July 2,
And
Secret of NIMH for the whole family.
You bet.
Thank you, Don.
My
We'll be
pleasure.
back after these words. 5 before 9 right now.
This one called The Secret of NIMH. It's opened in most parts of the country, and Pat Collins has a review.
Not long ago, in a land near the Magic Kingdom, a group of talented animators left a mouse named Mickey and his colleagues and set out to make their own movie. It's filled with brave mice, smart rats, a few nasty critters, and is called The Secret of NIMH. Its director, Don Bluth, who left the Disney studios 3 years ago over artistic differences, has made the kind of movie Walt Disney would have loved. It's an old-fashioned, fully animated feature that takes no artistic shortcuts on its way to a happy ending. But first, let me show you a crow named Jeremy, who steals the show, with the incomparable voice of Dom DeLuise.
If I had actually been near a cat, I'd be sneezing my brains out. See, I'm allergic to cat. I'm allergic to cat. I'm allergic to Excuse me, pardon me.
Wonderful. The crow's companion in that scene is the movie's heroine, a lady mouse named Mrs. Brisby, a widow with 4 children, who comes to their rescue with the help of an underground colony of runaway laboratory rats with very high IQs. The Secret of NIMH boasts some of the best voices ever assembled for an animated film. There's Hermione Baddeley as a know-it-all mouse ambushed by a tiny terror.
I'm not afraid of the dark. What? I'm not afraid of the farmer. I can't hear. I'm not even scared of dragon. I'm not even afraid of the great owl. Will you hush up? You hush up. Martin. Precocious monster. Fussy bullfrog. Spoiled brat. Loudmouth. Oh, where?
There must be.
Elizabeth Hartman speaks for Mrs. Brisby, and John Carradine's thunderous voice brings an ancient owl to life.
I must bid you good evening,
Mrs. Brisby.
Brisby. Mrs. Jonathon Brisby?
Why, yes. He was my husband. But how do you know about him?
That is not important. I will say this. His name is not unknown in these woods.
Please, sir. I'll do anything to save Timmy. Anything.
There is a way.
There is a way to make Disney-like movies, and Don Bluth has done it. This is an instant classic and the most appealing animated movie since Cinderella. The children who have been assaulted with the worst in animation on Saturday morning television deserve the best, and the best can be found in The Secret of NIMH.
Captivating stuff. We'll continue in a moment.
Next on Outlook, an alternative to the 5-day work week.
If anybody's going to be...
Hello, I'm Harry Morgan.
This is a free call.
For the whole family.
It's a classic adventure in family entertainment. It has wizards, villains, and heroes.
I ain't scared of nothing.
It's a fantasy full of adventure, dangers, and magic. Look there, right before your eyes, and beyond your wildest dreams. Discover The Secret of NIMH.
Starts Friday at a theater near you. Check paper for theaters and times. Watch for Stan and his weather van weeknights at 5.
It's a classic adventure in family entertainment. It has wizards, villains, and heroes.
I ain't scared of nothing.
It's a fantasy full of adventure, dangers, and magic. Look there, right before your eyes, and beyond your wildest dreams. Discover The Secret of NIMH, rated G.
Now playing at a theater near you. Check newspapers. This summer, the
In our spotlight today, some top stars are landing new and exciting roles. After a long talent...
Business groups come and go, but with...
Hot.
Finally, are you ready for this? Hollywood is now given in to video games, the nearly $7 billion a year industry. Film studios are turning their hit movies into arcade games. So by Christmas, be on the lookout for video arcade versions of 9 to 5, Star Wars, Jaws, and even Porky's. It's going to be very interesting to find out how they do that last one. In the R-rated section of the arcade, I guess.
Curtain around it, maybe, or something. Well, we'll ponder these important questions and more tomorrow when you'll get to meet Wayne Rogers.
And we'll also have part 2 of our special series on child actors. Till then...
Sure, and keep this handy.
I'm clear, I'm colorful, I'm sharp. I'm a Fox photo. And at Fox, quality doesn't just happen. We use quality Kodak paper. We want your prints to be the best that they can be. Satisfaction guaranteed. Your pictures back tomorrow are they're free. So if your pictures are worth taking, take them to the Fox. Fox photo. Look for the Fox.
Win a $25,000 diamond in Fox Photo's Dazzling Diamond Days.
6th, The Leader, your station for the National Sports Festival.
The West.
In our spotlight today, a musical based on the life of John Lennon will come to Broadway August 21st. The play originated...
If you're a longtime cartoon lover like me, you know that the world of animation has become very sophisticated since the early days of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Well, this summer, a disciple of the Mickey and Minnie School has created a sweeping movie full of color, music, and emotion. Here's a look at The Secret of NIMH and its creator, Don Bluth.
Great Jupiter, woman, what do you want?
Mr. Aegis, I know you don't like visitors, but this is an emergency. Please.
Madam, that is an emergency.
You might mistake The Secret of NIMH for classic Disney animation, which would probably please producer and former Disney disciple Don Bluth, who left the studio to form his own production company because he felt production standards at Disney had declined.
What we used to know as the early Disney films, that golden age, so much of that has been dissipated since Walt's death. So much of it isn't there anymore. We don't see movies like Bambi or like Pinocchio or Snow White. And I think it's because some of those production values and some of the stories that had such a good bite in them, you know, those are not there.
The Secret of NIMH is the result of Bluth's commitment to classical animation techniques. NIMH took 2.5 years of painstakingly detailed work, which involved over 1 million drawings and more than 1,000 individually painted backgrounds. In fact, there are as many as 96 drawings in a single second of film.
There are many production values that you will see on the screen in The Secret of NIMH, which are things you have not seen in a Disney picture before. In the tractor sequence, for example, we've tried to give you every production value that we know how to do. We've tried to give the whole sequence an emotion. That means that as the emotions grow in intensity, the colors must also do the same thing. When it first starts, the colors are very muted, and they're down as Mrs. Brisby wakes up in the morning. Then as she hears the tractor coming onto the field, and she's filled with this fear that her family's going to be killed, the colors get hotter. And as she races towards the tractor and she jumps up onto the plow itself thinking she's going to stop this machine somehow, they become intense reds and then violet colors. And as her emotions get really wild, well, the colors begin to feel that same thing. It is all worth it. The spending of the money is worth it. The time you spent animating and doing all these production values is worth it. The reason is when I, as an audience, or anyone, sits in that film, and if you can identify or feel a catharsis with what's going on the screen, something magic happens. You learn something. This identification lets you experience something that you can't do if you think it's drawn. And as long as we continue to remind the audience that we drew this picture, that we painted it, that it's all really pretend, I don't think they can get into the story. So it's important for us that we hide ourselves in the wings. No brushstrokes, no pencil marks, no evidence that we were even here. It's got to look just effortless, like ballet looks effortless.
Say. That wraps up another Tuesday, and be sure and join us tomorrow when you'll get to meet Jeannie Francis and John Davidson.
And you'll also meet Barbara Streisand's younger sibling, Roz Kind. Here's a preview to hold you. Goodbye.
If it's just a dream, if it's just a dream, let me dream.
Challenge for you, Stark. A new recruit. It's a tough case, but I want him treated in the usual manner. Train him for the games. Let him hope for a while, and blow him away.
You got it. I've been hoping you'd send me somebody with a little bit of guts. What kind of program is he?
It's not any kind of program, Stark. He's a user.
A user?
That's right. He pushed me in the real world. Somebody pushes me, I push back, so I brought him down here.
The Master Control program delivers an ultimatum in Tron, the new computer game fantasy from Walt Disney Productions. That's one of 4 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Sneak Previews. Across the aisle from me, Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And this is Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, in addition to Tron, we'll also be reviewing The Devil's Playground, an Australian film about the guilt-ridden life of inhabitants of a seminary. Also, Gregory's Girl, a Scottish rites of passage film about a teenage boy's first love. But first, Roger begins with an animated feature called The Secret of NIMH.
Well, our first movie is a delightful animated feature. It's called The Secret of NIMH, and let's stop right there with that title. Now, NIMH is spelled N-I-M-H, and no doubt some people are going to be asking, probably right now they're asking, if those initials could possibly stand for the National Institute of Mental Health. Well, probably a lot of other people aren't asking themselves that, but curiously enough, that's exactly what those initials do stand for, because this movie is a fantasy about a group of rats and mice, laboratory animals, whose intelligence skyrockets after they're given secret injections in the laboratories of the National Institute of Mental Health. And they get so smart, they escape, they set up their own civilization hidden in a barnyard, and in this scene, one of the mice, a timid little widow, goes to the wise old philosopher Al for advice about her sick child.
Why have you come?
Please, forgive me for disturbing you, but my son's life is in great danger. The plow has come early this year.
Move your family.
Move, but Timothy has pneumonia. He can't even get out of bed.
You must move to a place where it'll be safe from the plow.
Please, there must be another way.
There is no other way. I must bid you good evening, Mrs.
Mrs. Brisby.
Brisby. Mrs. Jonathon Brisby?
Why, yes. He was my husband. But how do you know about him?
That is not important. I will say this. His name is not unknown in these woods.
Please, sir. I'll do anything to save Timmy. Anything.
There is a way. Go to the rats.
You can notice there one of the best qualities of The Secret of NIMH, and that's the film's detailed and painstaking animation. A lot of new animated movies try to cut corners on the expensive old traditional animation procedures, but The Secret of NIMH creates not just animated movement like on Saturday morning TV, but also elaborate imaginary locations, backgrounds, wonderfully detailed characters, and as you can see in the next scene, a lot of body language. When the characters talk, it's not just their lips that move, their whole body gets into the act.
I don't suppose you would remember me.
Yes, you're Mrs. Brisby. And I'm sorry about your husband's death. Now, if you'd excuse me.
Mr. Ages!
Great Jupiter, woman, what do you want?
Mr. Ages, I know you don't like visitors, but this is an emergency. Please.
Madam, that is an emergency.
Oh, Mr. Ages, my son Timothy is so sick.
Timmy? The one with the spider bite? Oh, just give him some pip-cicero.
No, he's sick with a fever.
Well, I suppose I could fix up something.
Oh, thank you.
Follow me, but don't touch anything. Understand?
I do appreciate it.
Just how high is his fever?
He's burning hot to the touch.
Yes.
He's soaking wet with perspiration.
Yes.
And there's a raspy sound when he breathes.
A raspy sound, you say? Does he have a chill?
Yes, he does.
Have you wrapped him in a blanket?
Yes.
Now step inside, but keep your hands to yourself. I'm right in the middle of something very important.
I understand.
Oh, do you? Oh, look at this mess. Oh, shoot, go on. Your son has pneumonia.
Pneumonia?
It's not uncommon, but you can die from it.
Oh, please, dear God, no.
The Secret of NIMH widens out from that story of one troubled little mouse into a saga about a whole civilization in peril. Those rats and mice have grown so intelligent they've even developed ethical feelings. They start feeling guilty about sponging off of human civilization, and they have a great debate. Should they remain as trespassers in the barnyard, or go off somewhere else and start their own new society? Well, that's an interesting premise. Might be a little deep for some younger kids, but I think they'll like the exciting animation. The Secret of NIMH was made by a group of animators led by a man named Don Bluth. They used to work for the Disney studios, but they walked out because they thought the original Disney traditions were no longer being followed. And my notion is Walt Disney would have liked The Secret of NIMH.
Well, I think he would have, too. I didn't like the opening of the picture. I thought Mrs. Brisby was a little bit of a twerp. And, Don DeLuise does the voice of a big crow in the picture, a big bird, and it seemed to be like, you know, a Jungle Book kind of thing where the voice dominates some of the characters. But once they get into the world of the rats, once this little timid mouse is placed in genuine peril, and this whole society of rats and their various personalities, including a ruthless would-be leader, then I thought the picture really took off and did give me some of the magic of the old Disney films.
One of the things it had that a lot of recent animated films have not had, I think, was depth. Depth in terms of character and depth of situations.
And you kept going
when
to
you
new
saw
places.
Mr. Age's laboratory there, for example, there was a whole lot of detail in the background,
Yes.
and there seemed to be a lot there.
Yeah.
Oftentimes with animated films, you feel, well, it's so one-dimensional. It's all on the surface.
And they only take you to one or two spots. This film keeps, as she goes through the forest, we get to newer and more interesting places. A good film. The Devil's Playground, our next movie, is the